Hi everyone, today we're gonna model this beautiful pool room from scratch in Blender. I'm gonna walk you through the entire process for modeling, texturing, lighting, doing the water shader, and by the end of this video you're gonna have a beautiful render like this, so let's get started. So let's open Blender, and I'm using the Blender version 4.5. So let's first create this wavy kind of shape here. Shift A and a mesh, and we can let's open a plane and we can rotate it, so RX and 90. Let's go to edit mode by pressing tab on your keyboard, and we can S and Z, and we can also make it longer by S and X, something like this. And let's give this a couple of loop cuts, so Ctrl and R. Let's give this 4 loop cuts. Just scroll with your mouse wheel and you can get all of these loop cuts here and clicking them. Next you can select always the second loop cut and G and X, and you can move it a bit forward, and now you can already see we have like this wavy kind of shape. Now all we have to do is just bevel all of these loop cuts here, so we can select them by holding shift one by one and Ctrl B to bevel them. So we can just scroll with your mouse wheel a couple of times, maybe 2 times is enough, like this. Now you can see we already have this shape, and if you don't like the shape you can just scale it, so S and Y, and you can make it like a little bit more extreme. Right click, shade smooth. Next we can make this ground here, and we can just select all of these. So first click this one and holding Alt, and next just shift and clicking this other one here, and shift again and clicking the other edge. Next E to extrude, let go, and G and Y, so you can move it to here. Select these edges here, not these ones. You can just click one edge and holding Ctrl and Shift and the other one. Then you can just E and let go, and G and Z to move it up like this. And before we bevel our mesh, I think it's better to separate this wall here because it can get complicated. So let's select all of these, just box selecting it by clicking and dragging it like this, and P and selection. So let's select this ground here and edit mode, and we can go to edge mode, or let's go to select and select sharp edges, a bit easier. So all of these sharp edges are selected automatically. Ctrl B to give it a small bevel like this, and the shape can be to 1 if you want, or just 0.5. And now we have something like this, and looks much better than before. And Ctrl 2 to give it like a subdivision. But here we have to make like more loop cut, so let's give it one more and drag it to the edge here. Like this. 1 is enough, or you can give it some more, but I think it's not really necessary. And also here we can make a loop cut in the middle, Ctrl B to bevel, and scroll your mouse wheel to add some loop cuts and drag it to the edge. Now we can also give it a subdivision by holding Ctrl and 2. And as you can see, the edges are not this good, so we can add one more loop cut here. And also one here. Ctrl R to add a loop cut. Now we already created the scene here. And maybe you can add a camera already so that we know how it will look in the camera. So let's go to Shift A and add a camera. And let's move it back and to here. What you can do to reset the rotation is Alt and R to reset the rotation, and RX and 90 and 0. And next we can just R and Z to rotate it to our scene, and also move it up because it's a bit too much to the ground. And next you can make it this format here to fit on a short or a reel, and you can just switch these two, so 1080 and 1920. Like this. And also the focal length, I think it's not that great looking, so let's move this a bit more, a higher number. We can change this here from global to normal and move it a bit to the back. Also let's just rotate this a bit, and before we rotate the camera so we can see it better, we can open a new window here, so just drag this here, split it, press 0, and we can also hide this here, we don't need it, so T. And let's also hide the overlays here, and G and X, and we can rotate it a bit and move it up, so G and Y, like this, maybe not this much, so G and Y. And we also have to just adjust it a bit, so what you can do to make it easier is to press this icon here, and now you can easily just move your camera like this. And what I noticed, our scene is a bit too short, So we either can create a array modifier, or we can just make this longer by holding both. So click this first, the ground, and holding shift, and then the wall. And S and X can make it longer, as you can see here. I think it looks much better this way. And now it's easier to move the camera around, so we can move this camera to here. You also have to make this wall a bit longer, so let's click this wall and select this icon here, so we have our vertices, and we create all of these vertices here. And G, and let's change this back to global, and G and Z to make this higher, like this. Next, we can also make this much longer. Like, as you can see here, we have like this pool. And let's select all of these by holding Alt again and just clicking this edge here. And G and Z to move this down. You can make the pool as deep as you want. I think something like this is good. And next we can also make this a bit longer as well. So let's make this longer. I think it's still too narrow. And S and Y. And also this, let's move this more to here. So just for the camera to adjust it a bit, like here. And let's create this different kind of balconies here. And next we can just select these faces. So 3 to go to face mode, and C to circle select, and right click to move the circle select. So just select all of these faces here, and Shift and D to copy them, and G and Z to move them up. Separate them, so P to make a selection. Let's just make a loop cut here, and double G to move it to here. Also on this side, select this edge, Shift D to make a copy, and P to selection. We can go out of edit mode and select this one edge here. Edit mode again, select everything, and E and G and Z to give this some thickness. And maybe like something like this. Doesn't need to be this high. Right click, shade smooth. Also this ground needs some thickness as well. So let's select everything and E to extrude it. Let's give this one loop cut here and Ctrl B to give it some bevel. And next we have something like this. You can also give it one more loop cut in the middle and Ctrl B to bevel it to make sharper edges. Something like this. Let's select this again and edit mode, select everything and E to extrude. So we also have some thickness here. It doesn't need to be this thick. And let's give this one more loop cut here. Ctrl B. And also here. You also can add like a bevel modifier, or you can bevel the edges, but I think this way is a bit easier, for me at least. Next we have something like this. So I think it looks pretty good. You can also move this a bit higher. I think it's a bit too low. Something like this. And I think this needs to be higher as well. So this edge is already selected. So G and Z to move this up. And now we can just copy the ground and this balcony here. So let's select both and Shift D and G and Z to move them up. Or we can just copy this one here and move this up like in the image. And we can also add a ceiling, so a plane, and move this up, make it bigger. And we can move this here as well. And maybe not this high, so let's move this down. And next, we can create the small pillars here. So let's go to here. And as you can see, it is also wavy. So what we can do is select an edge. So just maybe this edge here. So click on it again and Alt and clicking this edge here, this middle one. Shift D to copy and P selection. Then we have this curve here, but we have to convert it to a curve first. So right click and convert to a curve. As you can see, we have a curve now. Shift and S, cursor to select it. And what we can do is a curve and a path, RX and 90 or RY and 90. Let's move this up. We can make it a bit bigger. I think it's big enough. And let's move this to the beginning of this curve. Next, we can go to this curve properties, to geometry, and we can go on the bevel and we can give it some thickness. And maybe something like this. Let's also move this on the Y-axis. As you can see, we have this other curve, so what we can do is make a curve modifier. So we can click this pillar and go to modifiers and curve. Or let's just first make an array modifier. And we can make this to 0 and this to also to 0 and the z maybe minus 30 maybe. We can adjust it later, so no worries. And next, let's just add a curve modifier. Take this little eyedropper, select this curve, or let's just name it so that we can find it. So let's name it curve. Go to object and we can find this curve here. It moved to the middle because the origin is here. And we can also move this here back, adjusting the array. So we can increase the number here, as you can see. And if you want more of these, you can also adjust them. So you can make this a bit smaller or bigger. Here also don't have this many. And what we can do is just copy them, so Shift D and move them up to here. And Shift D again and move them up. And next we can also make this door here. So let's create this door first. So I like to make the door in the middle. And as you can see, we don't really see the loop cut if we make one. So let's hide this subdivision modifier. You can just click this little icon here. Edit mode and one loop cut here. So we can just select this one here and also this one. And E to extrude. Now we have a door. And next we have to bevel this. So what we can do is select this. Or let's go to toggle view so you can see it better. So you can just press / on your numpad. Or you can go up here to view and local view and toggle local view. And next we can add just one bevel here. So let's select these edges here. Control B to make it like a bevel. And I think it's better to also bevel these as well. So these ones and these. Control B to give it a bevel. And one more maybe. And now we have this door here. And next we can make this handle. So we can select a point. Maybe a point of here of this curve. Shift and S, cursor to selected. Open a mesh cylinder. Edit mode and S and Shift and Z. So that it just scale down on the Y and X axis like this. Make it small, so something like this. And move it to here. And maybe a bit down. Next we can go to toggle view again by pressing / and we can select this upper face here. And next we can go to free, so the side view. And we can go to this vertex select. And what I like to do is select the vertex at the edge, something like this, like in the middle. If we go to the side, it is pretty much on the edge. And right click, Shift S, cursor to select it. And next we can just select this face, go to free again, so side view. And we have the spinning tool here and we have to adjust it to this X one. And here, minus 180. And we can adjust the center, so the Y one is the right one. Here you can also see it. So this is fine. And E to extrude it down to here. Let's go back and we have to rotate it. So RZ 180. And we can also make this one here longer. So let's go to edit mode, select this face, E to extrude it down. And if you think it looks too thick, because here it looks really thin, what you can do is right click shade smooth first. Let's select everything and Alt and S can make it much thinner, like this. And Shift D and we can move this to here. Right click, cursor to select it, and what we can do is either add a cylinder or a curve, but let's just add a cylinder again, and RX and 90, RZ and 90 again. Scale this down, and we can make this longer like this, and S and Shift and X so it doesn't scale on the X-axis. And now just copying it by Shift and D and moving it down. So we have this nice ladder here. We can also maybe rotate it a little bit. As you can see, it doesn't look this nice from this angle. So R and Z. And we can also add this little things here. I don't know how you call it. So select this, one loop cut here. And Shift S, cursor to select it. Maybe just copy this one what we did before, like this loop cut. P selection. And we have this one. Select everything, E and Z. Let's go to toggle view and E and S. And you can make it like a grid fill, so face and grid fill. We can select everything and make it bigger, so just scaling it up. You can select this edge by holding Alt and clicking it, Control B to bevel it. Let's adjust it back to 0.5. Right click, shade smooth. And next we can bring it to the other one. So let's just copy it. So Shift D. Let's make a loop cut is here as well. Control R and move it to here. Shift S, cursor to select it, and you can select this one. And Shift D and Shift and S and selection to cursor. And it looks pretty off because the origin is not at the right place. Right click and set origin to geometry. And next, again, Shift S, cursor to select it, and move to the right place. We only have to move it a bit up, like this. And next we can create a ground, so it's just a simple plane. So we can just copy the ceiling, Shift D, and move it down. And maybe a bit up, and make it bigger. Also, we can move it to here. Next, we can just create this wall here. So we can just make another plane, Shift and D, and move it to here. R, Y, and 90. And let's move it down. And we can make it longer. So S and Y, move it to here, make it a bit longer. And next we can also copy this again. So Shift D, R, Z, and 90. And move this to here. What I did for this wall, I made like, as you can see, some kind of cuts, like windows, so that the light is coming in. And we can do the same. So let's make a loop cut here. Control B, something about this, and also some loop cuts here. What we can do is select these faces by holding Alt and clicking them, by holding Shift and clicking them, and I to insert them, and I again, so we have this individual ones. Next we can just X and faces, and we have this windows here. You can also move this a bit, maybe this one. And this is pretty much the setup. All we need to do is for the waters, copy this plane, Shift D and G and Z. We can also add this one here, this curve. So what we can do is just thicken this one. So Shift D, G and Z, move this up. Let's go to curve properties and bevel and make some thicker. And shade smooth. And that's pretty much it. And we can also give this some subdivision by holding Ctrl and 2, just adjusting it a little bit so that it looks better. Maybe a bit higher to here. And Shift D and move this up. You can also hold Shift so that it's not moving too fast and you have more control. Next is the texturing part. So let's open a window here. Oh, we already have this one. So let's change this up to this shading editor. Here. Don't forget to drink water, guys, and don't forget to save your file as well. So Shift and so Control S to save your file. Don't forget it, guys, before you move into the texturing part. And next we can also change this up here. So let's change it to shading editor. The best you can do is change this up to rendered view so that you can see it right away, what you have to adjust. What I like to do is add a simple HDRI, so we can go to this world icon and color environment texture and open your HDRI. I can link one below, so if you want to use the same. Use a simple sky texture. What I forgot is the ceiling here. You have to make it bigger, of course, because otherwise there's too much light coming in. And you can also move this up and down or up, it doesn't really matter. And next, let's add our tiles, guys. So first we can select this ground and we can make a new texture. And what I showed before in my other tutorial is pretty simple. All you have to do is go to Edit, Preferences, and activate the Node Wrangler and the add-ons. Next, you can just press Ctrl, Shift, and T. And you can open your tile texture and you can select everything. So the ambient occlusion, the color, the displacement, the roughness. Once we have that, we can select everything and let's just unwrap angle based. And next we can just cube projection. Maybe you have to add some more loop cuts so it looks better. You can also unwrap the UVs if you want, but I think it's also pretty good this way. As if you have some kind of distortions here, just add some more loop cuts like this. And it would look much better. So here we have the mapping and we can go to scale and adjust the scale. Maybe something about this. So what I think is best, we can add some seams. So we can go to select and select sharp edges, and the sharp edges are selected automatically. And right click and mark seam. And you have to be in edge select, guys, it's very important, otherwise it will not work. Select everything, and unwrap angle based. And I think now it looks much better. And we also maybe should give it some more loop cuts here, just so that the UVs look good. As you can see here, it looks much better if we adjust it a bit. Guys, what I also noticed, we have to apply the scale. So Control A and scale. And it looks much better. And select everything you conformal. Next, you can also make the same process. Select the ceilings here, these balconies, the ground. And lastly, this one with the textures applied. And Control L and link materials. And now everything has the same material applied. And what I notice is the face orientation is off, so it's not right. So let's go up here, and face orientation. As you can see, it's not correct. So let's click these ones and this, and edit mode, select everything and Shift and N. And now as you can see, it turned white again. This is the right correction. Also these ones, Shift and N. And now it looks pretty cool, I think. So let's add a water texture, and it's pretty simple. All you have to do is add a bump texture. So let's add a bump, connect this to normal, and let's add a noise. And a factor to the height. Adjust the strength to something reasonable, maybe 0.2. And scale up. And let's make a color first so that you can see what is happening. Let's move this up as well to here. What we have to do is a transmission, so it has to be transmissive, of course. So let's add a transmission. I connected the wrong one, sorry. So I have to connect the color to the height, and we have to adjust the distance. I was a bit confused why nothing is happening. So let's adjust the distance to a bit more, something like this. And as you can see, it is rough, but let's make this pretty down to here. As you can see, it looks like water already, but I think it's a bit too bumpy, like it looks like a storm or something is going on. So let's make this a 0.2. Something like this looks much better. And maybe not this much of a distance. And next we can add a sun because it's pretty dark. So let's add a sun. Shift A and light. And sun. Move this here and R and X, and as you can see, it already looks pretty cool. We also have to adjust the camera, it looks a bit off. So let's go to 0. What we can do is change this gizmo back to normal, and we can move it back, so G and Z, and a bit more far away so that we can see more of the scene here. And as you can see, here you can see the water is clipping. So let's just select both. And you can select these edges and G and X. If you want to make the water a bit more see-through, what you can do is add a light path. So Shift A, add a light path, and we can connect the camera ray to the alpha. It is much more see-through, as you can see. And we can add some more color. And we can also make the HUI a bit, because I think it is a bit too bright. It has more this eerie kind of feeling. We also can move the camera a bit, so let's move this a bit. You can click this icon again and move this to here. I think it's much better. And let's add some color to this one. You can choose a color that you like. What I did is choose a red color. And we can also make the sun a bit like a color. So let's give this maybe like a more sunset kind of vibe, you know, something about this, like a yellow kind of color. And for the swing here, what I did is just go to Blender Kit, so you can just download it and search for objects. So what you can do is type in swimming ring, and as you can see, we already found this one here. This one is for free, so I can just drag it in and we can just scale it up. Before we render the image, I think it's good to look over the render settings. So I think I would bring this number down to something like 300. And sometimes I think it looks much better if you lift this denoise out. For the light path, you can turn off the slide tree and make this a bit smaller number if you want to have a faster render or you have like a slow PC. And next we can also, I have this set up to AGX and very high contrast. It looks much better this way, I think. And render image. Once your render is finished, it will look something like this. Tell me what you want to see next, guys. I will make more of a Poolroom tutorials and maybe some weapons and maybe cute characters. Yeah guys, thank you for watching. I hope you could learn something new and I see you in the next tutorial. I love you all. Bye!